Hi, I'm Astoria, Oregon Mayor Bruce Jones with a local update on the COVID-19 pandemic. Governor Brown made some major announcements today about her reopening plan, so I'm going to talk about those and how they'll affect us locally, as well as trends in the disease and our current local outbreak. As of yesterday, May the 6th, the United States had over 1.25 million positive tests and almost 75,000 deaths. That's up 1,750 deaths from the day before. The Center for Disease Control projections are that nationally, daily deaths will continue rising, reaching about 3,000 deaths daily by June the 1st. So overall, our nation is not trending in a good direction. Oregon continues faring better with a flat trend line, 2,900 positive tests, and 115 total deaths in our state. Locally, there's an outbreak of an unknown size among employees of a local seafood processing plant, which has now been closed. Of the first 35 employees tested, there were 15 positives. 165 additional employees have been tested, and we should have those results by tomorrow morning. Some of those employees live in Clatsop County, and some of them live outside of the county, including some in Washington State. Clatsop County Public Health is doing the contact tracing, investigating who the infected persons may have come in contact with and notifying those individuals and putting those who need to be in isolation into isolation. So we should have a better idea how widespread this local infection is in a few days. Our thoughts are certainly with those workers and with their families, as well as businesses affected by this significant closure. This outbreak is a reminder to all of us, as we all are longing for a return to normalcy, a partial reopening of our economy, that the virus is out there in our community. So even though our numbers have been low until now, it's here and it's not going away. A reopened business is going to be just one infection away from closing again if there's a further outbreak. So let's all of us commit to controlling what we can control. And what we can control is our own behavior. It's the steps that we take to practice the guidelines public health has given us, and hopefully not become that person that causes an infection, which causes a business to have to close down again. So when we're out in public, if you're coming within 6 feet of other people, wear a mask. Don't be embarrassed to wear a mask. If you go into a store, wear a mask. You feel fine? Well, great, but you don't know that you're not an asymptomatic carrier. So wear a mask to protect other people. If you're not employed now, then stay home except when you need to go out and get some fresh air, which you should, or do essential business. You all know the rest of the public health guidelines. We're all tired of hearing them, but we're going to have to keep repeating them for a long time, because if we don't continue to follow those guidelines, any one of us could be that person that causes a business to have to shut down again, and we don't want to bear that burden or make someone sick. Today, the governor made a number of major announcements. I'm going to go through some of the highlights of the announcements, but there is a lot of detail, so please take the time to read through the written announcements online. I've put links to them on my Mayor Bruce Jones Facebook page. You can always also find them on the governor's website or Oregon Health Authority website. First, large gatherings such as concerts, conventions, fairs, they're canceled through September, unless appropriate modifications can be made to those events to provide physical distancing. So this is going to have an effect on our July 4th celebrations, the county fair, regatta. We'll be waiting to see what specific modifications will be acceptable to the state. Second, certain retail establishments that were closed by the governor's executive order 12-20, like furniture stores and art galleries, will be allowed to reopen with restrictions on May 15th. Also on May 15th, gatherings of up to 25 people will be allowed as well. The prohibition on non-essential travel, however, remains in place. Childcare, summer camps, youth camps may also reopen after May 15th with restrictions that are spelled out in the governor's guidance. Another change, the minimum time between phases is now 21 days. That's changed from 14 days earlier. So let's talk about phase 1 reopening. Counties may be allowed to move to phase 1 reopening as early as May 15, a week from tomorrow. there are a series of requirements that have to be met, mostly dealing with hospitalization rates, PPE, testing, etc., within that county's healthcare region. Now, Clatsop County is part of Healthcare Region 1, which also includes Clackamas, Columbia, Multnomah, Tillamook, and Washington counties. It's actually to our benefit to be lumped together with large metropolitan areas because their PPE and hospital capacity counts towards our requirements. The governor has released, or is about to release, final guidelines for 6 sectors: restaurants and bars, retail, childcare, transit, outdoor rec, and personal services like salons, gyms. Astoria has had local representation on the advisory teams working on these guidelines. You can find the guidelines on the Oregon Health Authority website. Currently, Clatsop County meets the requirements for Phase 1 reopening. The county will submit its plan early next week. When will the governor approve our plan? We don't know, but it's possible we could have a Phase 1 reopening as early as May 15th, next Friday. Remember, moving from Phase 1 to Phase 2 requires waiting at least 21 days and testing to monitor trends in positive tests and hospitalizations. Fortunately, our current local outbreak has not yet resulted in any hospitalizations, and we certainly fervently hope that that remains the case. So the earliest we could move to Phase 2, if we are approved for Phase 1 on May 15, would be on June the 5th, 21 days later. What about reopening to tourists? The governor's ban on non-essential travel is still in place, as is Astoria's prohibition on leisure stays in our hotels and other short-term lodging. Unfortunately, we know that there are many day trippers out there that have been traveling to the coast in violation of the governor's executive order. The economic loss our short-term lodging owners and operators have suffered is devastating. However, I believe that opening hotels too soon to out-of-town leisure travelers is going to have very unfortunate consequences by increasing the likelihood of a rapid spike in cases, which could lead to hospitalizations, which would then lead to shutting our economy back down again, just when we're trying to reopen, and that's really the worst possible scenario for us. There's really no pain-free option to choose from when it comes to reopening the economy. Our goal is to reopen in a measured way that is the most likely to be sustainable, that's the least likely to result in having to shut back down again, which would be truly devastating. I support the county's plan to open hotels after Phase 1 and Phase 2 in increments of percentages of total capacity, and certainly not until after Memorial Day weekend. The cornerstones of all the recommended reopening strategies nationally and globally are widespread testing, monitoring, tracing, and isolation. The countries that have been most successful globally in combating COVID-19 are countries that began widespread testing, monitoring, tracing, and isolation very early, beginning in January. Unfortunately, the United States did not develop a national testing strategy or begin an aggressive testing program early. We've missed our opportunity to enjoy the successes of countries like Taiwan and South Korea. We're playing catch up now, and we still don't have adequate testing nationally. Nonetheless, Clatsop County now has the capacity to begin next week a small community testing program of 300 residents per week, and the county will be putting out guidance on that program in the next few days. This program will help the county public health department form a better, clearer picture of our local infection rates. Finally, the state has processed 3,600 unemployment claims from Clatsop County since March 15. Statewide, 83% of claims have been processed, leaving 17% still waiting for their benefits. So, to summarize, the county will submit its reopening plan to the governor early next week. Clatsop County could be approved for Phase 1 as early as May 15. Detailed, specific state guidelines for certain sectors were posted online beginning today. We're waiting on the results of an additional 165 tests of employees at the local closed seafood processing facility to better understand the extent of our local outbreak. Nationally, infections and deaths are rising and projected to continue doing so. we're very fortunate to have been spared from the worst of the health impacts here in Oregon. But we will have a rise in infections with reopening. Reopening is a risk management decision, the risk of disease versus the risk of economic disaster. Let's do everything we can locally to continue mitigating the spread of the virus so that our local businesses can reopen with restrictions and stay open. All of us are going to be maintaining some form of physical distancing requirements for quite some time. Let's just get used to it. It's going to be the new normal for quite a while. This might not be the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's certainly light in the tunnel, which is a welcome relief from some of the darkness we've been in. It's good news. We're moving forward. We have a reopening strategy. We're going to start reopening our businesses. So thank you, and stay healthy, Astoria.